flurries of executive orders that have been coming across the television. It has caused some stir, and the execution of these executive orders, how that's caused a concern for all of us. Some things you want to look at now. We look at the term here, I talk about Islamophobia. I don't like to use that word, but that's the popular nomenclature, Islamophobia, you know what I mean? But we don't hate discrimination focused at Muslims. How do we combat that? Understanding your civil rights. How do you respond to it? You need to know. And explore some of the legal resources and community strategies for resilience. What is part of the Sunnah, part of the elite, and part of the understanding we know that the strong Muslim is better than the
weak Muslim.
That's right, but they're still good in both, right. So how are we strong? We're strong physically, we're strong mentally,
Spiritual.
we're strong spiritually. And part of that mental strength comes from knowledge and understanding. So, what was the scare? We had a big scare about Project 2025. Folks have heard about Project 2025. Who's read the entire 900-some page? Y'all didn't read it? You straight up, you didn't read it? No, I didn't read it either. But you actually got it. I keep it on PDF, keep it on my iPad. So there was a big scare about Project 2025 and what was going to be the results of the implementation of Project 2025. We do see now that many of the EOs, the executive orders that have been issued, have been somewhat an implementation of the goals of Project 2025. We see here we're extending the presidential authority over agencies like the DOI, Department of the DOJ, the FBI, DHS, and we got the new Attorney General, FBI Director who's still going through his confirmation hearing, DHS Secretary who actually went on television with her strapped up ice jackets and everything, Kristi Noem, who's actually the Secretary of Homeland Security. But she's in that position now, and we've seen a lot of these raids that are taking place in schools. They're threatening in other places too to come and detain people. Increased surveillance, and what are some of the potential impacts of Muslim Americans at the bottom here? We look at expanded, extreme vetting and immigration process. That's what's also what will probably happen, or what they're trying to do. Surveillance of religious groups and communities. That's us and the message. That's what Project 2025 really wants to do too. And limitations on free speech for activities, activists, and organizations. We went through a whole 15 or so months of protesting against the Palestinian genocide. And we know how the blowback that we saw on these college campuses. And this was on the Bible. So, you know, this is not about a Democrat or Republican kind of an issue, because we know we see how we have freedoms that are infringed upon no matter who's in power. We have to understand that too, that as Muslims, we don't really have an allegiance to a party, we have an issue. We think about the issues that are important to us. Increased law enforcement at targeting airports and borders. We're going to go over also some of the fundamental rights you all need to know about. Is anyone familiar with some of the constitutional amendments that are important to us? Can someone name any constitutional amendment that you're very familiar with that you hear about?
Second.
I knew you were going to say that. Right? I knew you were going to say it. Now I know what you're
14.
Second Amendment. Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms.
Yes.
There you go. You can show a bare arm. You're right to do that.
The fifth, freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. That's in that Third Amendment.
The fifth,
The Fifth Amendment. We've got 5. So we got Fifth Amendment. We got the First Amendment.
14.
14. First, Fifth, 14. Any other? You're going to get the one you missed, which is also important. Huh? Birthright citizenship comes under the 14th Amendment. That's 14.
But it wasn't for everybody. It was for Islam.
Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying birthright. That's what the argument is, but the constitutional opinion from the Supreme Court says otherwise. So what happened back in 2017 when we had the first administration, the Muslim ban? This is kind of was the precursor of 2025. Some of the things that saw happen. Some folks were in favor. Muslims that may be in favor. Non-Muslims that were in favor of it. These are some of the things that happened. Banned some of the 7 major Muslim countries, suspended refugee admissions, required extreme vetting for visa process. The effects on Muslim Americans, legal challenges. Some people were denied re-entry. Brothers and sisters from Sudan had a rough time. And the outcomes is that some of these were struck down by courts, but later versions were upheld, so the courts got involved. And then when Biden came into office, he revoked it. What you have seen in the last 10 days have been laws that have been enacted via an EO. So I'm going to use the EO kind of abbreviation, the executive order. Executive order. Another thing I want you to think about at the end of the presentation is I want you to think about how many executive orders have been passed so far. Huh? Countless. Yeah, there's a certain figure so far. And think about, compared to the previous administration, how many has, who has executed more. And think about who's executed the most executive orders out of any U.S. president. We'll go with that. So the impact of executive orders, this is what happens. We have travel bans that have happened. We have airport security that's been affected, or trying to affect that. Restrictions on immigration and asylum seekers, we see that's happening now, with some of the restrictions that they're trying to place on whether or not someone is seeking asylum into the United States. We had a whole slew of people who are waiting for entry legally into the United States and were paused as a result of some of these the executive order that was passed. And these people that are trying to get entry legally, that were paused and lost tons of money too. Workplace, how do you lose money? Well, let's, for example, you actually have paid thousands of dollars to get here. You have a job waiting. You have things that are actually on hold, and you lose those opportunities as a result. That's what I mean by that. People legally trying to be here.
Because normally the NGOs are paying the bill.
Yeah, but you know,
So that's not.
other costs.
That's our dollars that the NGOs are spending.
Fundamental civil rights. So we talked about what are the civil rights. We got the First Amendment, protects religious freedom, freedom of speech. You missed the one in the middle, the Fourth Amendment. Number 4, guards against unlawful searches and seizures. That was the scenario in the beginning. All right? We're going to go over these amendments that you all have to be familiar with. We have the Fifth. So the Fifth Amendment talks about due process. So the Fifth Amendment really goes over, we talk about unlawful takings by the federal government. For example, if the government says they love this property, this is dope, and we like that, where it's located, and we think we're to come and take this over and set up shop and let it become a base for a military base because we think it's close to whatever. They can't just do that. There's a due process, federal takings. So there's a due process that you have to follow. That same Fifth Amendment applies to us in other due process rights too. There has to be a procedure. Even for those that are not here, as you would say, legally, there's still a process.
Can I ask you something?
What's up?
How does eminent domain fall under that? I mean,
I don't forget. Let me get to some other parts of the presentation. That's kind of like
I'm saying if you're
Let me get Q&As at the end.
Yeah, that's
All right.
questions. Let's see.
Then we have the 14th Amendment, which we talked about. That's part about the states' rights. We also have a lot of our constitutional rights in terms of our right to freedom, not freedom of expression, but some of the anti-discrimination clauses that you have, in addition to when we talk about citizenship. First one, First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people to peacefully or peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That seems like a lot. Interesting thing about the governing document that is supposed to basically tell us what to do in this country. It's not really that big. That's it. This little booklet. This is what everything is supposed to go back to. Constitution, right there. So for Muslims, we have the right to what? To wear what we want to wear, religious attire. You know, there have been cases where folks, you know, what you want to wear in terms of hijab, kufis in certain scenarios, certain situations, you can wear these things. You can't be discriminated against if it's a part of a verifiable religious belief. You can practice our religion openly. You got to make salat somewhere as long as you're not infringing upon any other security scenarios. You can do that too. It's not a problem. And we've had victories in court with CARE and other organizations that have had victories fighting against discrimination based upon our rights to practice our religion. Protected free speech. We have a right to free speech. For example, we look at some of these things here. For example, if we have folks that are activists and we're protesting against foreign policies, like over what's happening now, affecting majority Muslim populations, military action, surveillance. The First Amendment ensures that they cannot be jailed or censored for expressing political dissent. It's part of the constitutional right. We know there's an EO right now trying to do what? Threaten to deport anyone who, quote unquote, expresses support for Hamas, which really is any kind of anti-Palestinian or any Palestinian protesting or in favor of Palestinian rights. That's an EO that's trying to be directed towards that. You also have challenges. These things are legally protected. You know, we have discrimination, we've seen social backlash, material support laws back in the day. We had some of our charities being shut down back in the 90s. A lot of that stuff was going right out in the 90s, and after 9/11, we had a lot of our charities being shut down, finding ways to kind of circumvent the law. Now, in terms of free speech, not all speech is protected. Not everything you say is protected speech. But you would be surprised on what things you can say that is protected. Can you scream fire in a crowd?
No. If there is a fire.
Can you say, I hate, I'm not going to say it, but I hate this group of people?
Yes.
Can you say that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Can you defame people in public? Defamation.
That gets tricky.
Okay. Right. So not all speech is protected, but there's a lot of speech that's protected. Our peacefully assembling to protest, that is a protected right under the Constitution. Okay. So you don't, no matter what you see on TV, doesn't matter what you hear on the radio, doesn't matter to say if you're from this country, the Constitution has these protections for you. And we need to remember that too. The other part of it, our protests. We know we're going through all the protesting here. I've talked about protests, how you have the right to protest. So we know the protections for any of our Muslim-led protests and demonstrations. We have seen increased law enforcement potentially at certain demonstrations when Muslims are a part of that. Can you record a police officer with your phone?
Yes.
You can. You can. You can do that. And if you have an interaction, it may be recommended that you do that. Okay? Talked about the First Amendment. Any questions about the First Amendment so far? So we need to know the first one, First Amendment, religious practices. Now also we have what maybe some that want to espouse in some of our other states is the Establishment Clause. So the First Amendment has the free exercise clause and the establishment clause. Free exercise means we can practice our religion freely and openly without those limitations, unless there's a strict scrutiny test to limit the practice of any kind of fundamental constitutional right. You can't just do it, but there's certain times that you could. But you have the establishment clause, which means you cannot establish a religion in a locality. The establishment clause. So what does that mean? You can't force people to say the Lord's Prayer. You follow what I'm saying? You can't say that this is a Christian country. This is not a Christian country. The founding fathers, many of them weren't even Christian. They weren't. Many of them were deists. Thomas Jefferson was a deist. They didn't adhere to a so to speak religious standpoint. So the establishment clause says you can't force religion on somebody. There's no state religion. There's no country religion. Fourth Amendment. Looking at the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by an affirmation, particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. You have to have specificity. Probable cause is a standard that has to be met. I don't care who it is, you can't come into this masjid and say, I'm going to search this masjid without a warrant. A warrant has to be signed by a judge. Now, there have been situations recently where ICE has used fake warrants. Fake warrants. So stuff that looks like it's a warrant. You think it's a warrant. You're not reading it. It's not signed by a judge. Has anyone seen a legal pleading before? No, you have to say a legal pleading, something filed in court before. Anybody gone to court before? All right, yeah, somebody's been in court. All right. So you see the pleading, it has a heading, it has a case number, it's got the court that it's for. Warrants will have that information on it. Remember that. And look at the warrant. You're allowed to view the warrant. So you also have with the Fourth Amendment too, looking at some of the situations here, being stopped and searched at airports based solely on your parents and your religious attire. Has that happened to anybody before?
All the time.
All the time.
Random.
You just wait. Just like, yo, it's like, it's my turn. Let me get away. Because what time am I supposed to be at the dinner? I'm going to add 2 hours to that because it's about to be a delay. Right? There are certain things you also need to know when it comes to travel coming back to the United States. Now, another thing that's happening with CBP, Customs and Border Protection, is coming into the United States. You know, you travel to Turkey, coming back to Turkey. Hey, look, I'm a citizen, got my passport, got the whole nine. They ask you what? What are the questions they ask you at customs when you come back?
Why did you go to Turkey?
Huh?
Why have you
Do you
gone?
have anything?
Why did you go to Turkey?
Do you have anything to declare?
You have anything to declare? Right?
How long is the?
How long did you stay?
Did you go any other country other than the Turkey?
Any other country other than Turkey? Okay.
Saudi Arabia.
Maybe Saudi Arabia, right?
I don't know.
Can they ask you, what is your social media account?
No.
Why not?
They do.
Can they give you a form for you to fill out to put the information about where you went, your social media account, the password to your cell phone?
No.
Take your cell phone. Guess what? It's happened.
Not without a warrant.
Not without a warrant, but they've done it. They've done it.
They have the right?
Then that can be thrown out.
Here's the thing about it. They don't have the right. And I'm going to talk about this later on. All right? So example, just to conduct a surveillance, we see this example here at masjids, surveilling it, looking for specific evidence linking to the congregation and criminal activity. You can't also, with surveillance and wiretapping, there are laws or standards that they have to meet to do a wiretap. It's just not going to happen. but we're always cautious too anyway. Somebody in around here could be checking us out. All right? Fifth Amendment, we talked about first, got fourth. I know this is like school, but you gotta know this stuff, straight up. It's important. Fifth Amendment, we talk about due process. Everyone has a right to due process, even if you are not documented. There's a process that has to be followed, okay? There are some protections. Not all the protections, but there are some protections. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. It's talking about how you get charged for crime. Y'all need to know that too. Except arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in the actual service in time of war or public danger. No person, nor shall a person be subject for the same offense twice, be put in jeopardy of life, liberty, of life or limb, nor shall they be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, property without due process of law. Nor should you have any taken of your property for public use without just compensation. Brother said before, what about eminent domain? What about when there has to be a they've met the standard? Can't, all right, bro. You gotta be on your own with that. No, they gotta compensate. Now, police comes to you, ICE comes to you, whoever it is, they come to you, start saying, hey, look, you know, Sheikh, Mr. Umar, you know, we see, you know, here, we've been investigating some suspicious activity that we've seen in Silver Spring. You appear to meet the description of the individual of interest. We would like for you to sit here with us and answer some questions for us. But Umar says what?
I have nothing to say until I speak to my attorney.
Bingo. There's no obligation to speak to law enforcement. You don't have an obligation to speak to them. Okay?
And if you do, you gave up.
Right, so exactly. Look at, you have the right to remain silent. So you're looking at this part of the right to remain silent. He approaches you, asks about your political views, who you voted for, who did you vote for, who you supported back in Sudan, RSF, Sudanese National Army, you know what I mean? HTS over in, you know, Syria, or you with the others, Bashar Assad, all that stuff, right? No, I don't have to answer your questions. I don't have to answer your questions. Know your rights. Am I free to leave? Also, are you free to leave? Are you done with the questioning? Am I free to leave? If I'm not free to leave, that means I'm under a custodial scenario. Does anyone know what that is? Custodial?
You been detained.
Under the hood.
Under the hood. Yeah, under the hood. But go ahead, yes, sir.
If they retain you, or if they stop your egress in any way, it's considered an arrest.
Yes, but they have to give you, we have a reason for detaining you, for that detention. There has to be probable cause.
But if you, let's say if a police officer, you're walking down the street, a police officer steps in front of you and stops your movement, the moment you walk around him, that's considered resisting arrest.
Well, it all depends. If he said you're under arrest.
No,
Yeah.
the very act of stopping your
Well-
movement is considered an arrest, and when you move to go around, because it happened to me when I was.
Yeah, well, that should have been arguable. That should have been an argument against that. You know, there's an argument. I would have argued against it if I was representing that case.
Yeah.
But the thing about, we're looking at protection against coerced and confessions. So sometimes if you're in a detention, if you are, as they say, in a custodial situation, that means that you're in a situation where you have a right to what? Of course, to remain silent. And you have a right to be told what? If,
Oh, the charges.
well, the charges, but also you have the right to be given your Miranda rights.
Yes, yes.
When there's a custodial, when you're not free to leave, they can't continue to question you without letting you know that you have a right to remain silent. Am I free to leave? No, you're not free to leave. Yeah. Okay. Don't, right? Coerced confessions can be thrown out. Coerced confessions can be challenged. But the number one rule we're going to go through, we got a little rubric here, the 4 R's. We're going to go about my 4 R's that we got, and we'll get through in the presentation, talk about those 4 R's. Remember those 4 R's. 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment. 5th Amendment is about federal. 5th Amendment usually federal stuff. 14th Amendment applies a lot to the states and also to some of our other civil rights. This is not all the 14th Amendment. There's a section of the 14th Amendment that's been really hot now in terms of citizenship, who, natural born citizen, whether or not, who that applies to, okay? No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens in the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, pursuit, life, liberty, or property without due process of law. We saw that before in the 5th Amendment. 5:14, the F, 5:14, 5, 5th, federal, 14th, state. Both have due process. Nor deny any person within this jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. That's where we get. That's the big part of it. This language is not very long. But you see the courts throughout the years have to use the Constitution consistently to come up with variations to explain what it means in these different scenarios. 14th Amendment ensures equal protection and guarantees due process, both the state and federal laws. You get both state and federal. For example, religious discrimination. We got some examples here. Sister wearing, their khimar. What does that mean? Refusing to hire Muslims, a woman for wearing hijab. The cases against that. Muslim immigrants being denied a visa, or would be denied a visa or naturalization because of that. They can't use that as a basis. Remember that. And you have to have fair procedures in terms of immigration status. It's got to be fair. Don't let someone say, you're not a citizen, you don't get these rights. No, that's not how they are right. There's a procedure here. Always remember that too. Immigration part. Take a look. Know your visa and residency status. Don't open the door for ICE unless showing a valid warrant. Remain silent and ask for a lawyer. What you about to say?
How can you a warrant if you don't open the door? They can show you through the glass door window.
Yeah. So open the door. I mean, you don't have to. And also at the same time too, if it gets to be a point, they may have certain things where they may try to enter, but they have to have that valid warrant to search your property. Search it. All right. Now there was a question about, of course, always remaining silent and asking for a lawyer. In a situation, don't think that you're going to outsmart dude trying to investigate you. All right. Also, if you're being approached if you start talking, bets can be off. But also, if you start talking, especially to a federal agent, and you lie, you got a federal charge. I've had clients that happened to. He had no other crime. He did nothing else. But when he was sitting down talking to the FBI, they said he wasn't telling the truth. They found out he wasn't quite telling the truth. You got an obstruction of justice charge. Federal cases for even those cases for an obstruction of justice charge, they're felonies. Even though the jail time is minimal, potential, you got a felony. So it's best to keep your mouth shut. Understand that. Rights of undocumented individuals, basic services. There we go. There's a question one of the wonderful brothers had before we started today. He was like, Damani, what rights do they have as an undocumented? First of all, undocumented doesn't always mean someone came here illegally. Undocumented can be someone can come in legally, with the status becomes undocumented. Overstaying a visa, and you're in a bad situation. You may try to find ways to adjust your status, hopefully, but you don't have a whole lot of rights, but there are some basic rights they do have. They do have a basic right to public education. Undocumented, do have that right to that. Okay? They have some basic rights to emergency health care.
How is it undocumented?
I know, bro. Yeah, undocumented children, there's a case, there's a Supreme Court case that permits them to have rights to education. That's why you got them all up in the schools right now. Whether you like it or not, you can argue it. I'm just telling you, I'm not giving you an opinion. I'm just telling you what it is.
The question was, what rights do illegal immigrants
Bro, you didn't
have?
hear what I'm saying. Same thing. Illegal immigrants, they're undocumented.
If you, no, there's a difference between an undocumented person and an illegal immigrant. That's like you just laid out, right?
Yeah.
The person could have came here legally and overstayed their visa or something
They
like
become
that.
undocumented.
And becomes undocumented.
That's right.
But the illegal immigrant came in a different way.
Bro, I'm trying to tell you. All right?
So he still has the same rights that the person who came legally had.
Yeah, undocumented. Like I said, and they still have the same risks too. Like I'm saying, they can still be, they can be deported. You know, sometimes in these procedures, there will be expedited deportation procedures. There's procedures immigration-wise that everyone has to, that they have to follow.
So there's no legal difference between a person who comes legally and becomes undocumented and the person who came illegally. No difference.
Same thing, bro. So the thing is that if you
I'm
are,
asking.
yeah, no, true, that's good. No, Aki, that's a good question. If you're here, if you got relatives here, and that visa is about to expire, they need to hurry up, do something, or get out, come back. You don't want to be in a state where you're in that other state. Now, I have had friends, I've had folks that I know who have been here overstayed that time. They've overstayed it, and they did ways to adjust it through legal ways to adjust it. Okay. But undocumented is what it is. And the term, and let's think about this too now. Who's created the term alien?
Sci-fi?
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Why are you gonna use the term alien to a human being?
It's a double standard.
It's a double standard, because there are all kinds of people that come in here that are not legal, but you're looking about the term alien. That's just a personal thing I have about using the term as an alien.
So an American overseas is considered an expat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're here in America from a different country, you're considered an alien.
Right. So you think about the terminologies that are being applied and used. Yes, sir.
So these basic rights that you mentioned for the undocumented people, are they constituted in the United States Constitution, or this is just the president using a case by Supreme Court? Because that can change.
The Supreme Court, I'm going to go over that too. So there are certain constitutional procedural things that they follow, okay? There's certain constitutional procedural rights that you have. It's not a lot, not a whole bunch, but, okay? And some of these are, as you see, that you have to help interpret the Constitution. But you also have to understand too that executive orders that are being passed, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it was Obama, whether it's Clinton, it doesn't matter. They all do it. All of them do it, okay? But those executive orders, as you will see what happened with some of the executive orders that the current president has done, there have been some that he's overridden. For example, the one with quote unquote DEI, okay? The DEI executive order. Funny thing about DEI is that the major recipients of DEI don't look like me. The major benefactors of DEI are what? They get it, but what do they look like? Okay, think about it too. So the members, as is what I'll say, the members of the global majority living in America, we are all members of the global majority, but we just live here. We're not minorities. We're members of the global majority, but we just live here in a status where we're not the majority people. So what I'm saying, the major benefactors of the DEI are not folks that look like me or anyone else in this room.
Benefactors, you say?
The major beneficiaries of DEI programs.
What is DEI?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, that was something that Well, Biden helped, but Obama did it in 2011. Okay, so you had Latins, you had Hispanic, you had women,
That was an executive order.
all the executive orders. These are executive orders, and that's why you could just squash it out with another executive order. But we talk about some of the diversity initiatives that were actually in place in the federal government were implemented long before that with Johnson. Okay, so they've been in place all this time. When someone talks about that, let them know that the folks that have benefited the least from the DEI, someone looks like me, you know,
That's,
last on the list.
okay, I'm sorry, I thought that was basically for black people.
It ain't. DEI is not, DEI is not, they make,
But that's
what I'm saying is
Trump
that,
is saying.
that's what certain people want you to believe, that you're benefiting black people or brown people.
Yeah.
That they're taking all the benefits, they're taking the job, they're taking the educational opportunity, which is a big fat lie. But what's happening, they struck it out, but the folks that are being affected are the people that may have supported the person who's implementing these laws. And they're finding out that actually I'm getting affected by this too. The people that are not being affected, at least affected right now, because they haven't benefited as much, and that's been proven. That's like last on the list in terms of percentages. Why?
A lot of people don't realize that back in the late 50s and early 60s,
Yes.
black people went through, you may have seen the video footage of being hosed down, dogs sicked on and whatnot. The black people went through hell to establish rights for black people. As soon as they established the rights for black people, they gave it away to everybody else. The women have to have it, the homosexuals have to have it, the Hispanics have to have it, the disabled have to have it. So you don't get it, everybody else gets it. You gave blood to establish it, but you don't benefit from it.
100%. So 4 R's, we're talking about the 4 R's. 4 R's, boom, boom, here we go. Number, respect. You get into, you deal with law enforcement, be respectful. You got an adab as a Muslim, be respectful. 2, refuse to answer questions without an attorney. You know, you have a right to refuse it. You can refuse to answer any questions. 3, reject. We don't consent to, right.
Search and seizure.
We don't consent to, you drive your car, we come out the message right here, make a right turn on Briggs Cheney, you go past the stoplight, you're about there, up there at the shopping center, cop whoop, whoop, says, hey, look, Mr. Jackson, we noticed you made here, and we believe that you have some contraband in your car. Listen, man, it's about 10:35 at night, we gotta go home. We can do it easy, or we can do it hard.
Take the hard way.
Let me just look at your car, let me look in the trunk and stuff like that. Say, sorry, sir, you know, I don't consent to search it. Never get the warrant. Gotta have the warrant. You got it? Remember that. Request a lawyer immediately if you're detained. If you get detained, get an attorney. Don't speak. Don't think you can outsmart these people. Don't do it. They can lie. You know, think about it. They're allowed to lie. Cops are allowed to lie.
Yes, they are.
They lie all the time.
That's true, that's so true.
I was in college when I was in my senior year in college. My friends and I, fraternity days, we had some issues going on, right? Cops took some of us in one room, took folks in another room. Said, you know, your boys over there, man, they telling on you. They telling everything about what you did, about how you conducted yourself. So just tell us. And we were like, and we knew. It's like, no, man, this dude's lying. So I don't know what you're talking about. Right? Because he was lying. They're allowed to lie. Us, on the other hand, you can't lie like that. So it's best to keep your mouth shut. How to address these things, about quickly, how to address, I'm using the term Islamophobia because everybody uses that term, but document incidents. Keep a documentation of stuff that happens. Report. We got CARE, we got DOJ, even though there's still people underneath that you can report these incidents to because they have responsibility to document incidents of hate. Educating allies and involve them in advocacy. Now that ally thing, we all get kind of, hey, what are you talking about here? People that align with their values, you feel comfortable. There are people out there that are part of the global majority that live in America that are not Muslim. You understand? People that are affected like we're affected, these are allies fighting against discrimination. Promoting intervention to combat these hate crimes, these hate incidents. Talk about all this right now. Talk about all the laws we got. We got the First Amendment. We got the what amendment? We got after that? And what else after that?
14.
Which one talks about state right? The state?
14.
What talks about the federal government?
Fifth.
Huh?
Fifth.
Fifth. Which one is the, talks about whether or not you can say what you want to say? And which one is that? First Amendment. First Amendment has two types of rights that it talks about. First right is what? Okay, what else does the First Amendment give you? Assembly. Right. We got speech and assembly. In terms of speech and assembly, we have that. What else does the First Amendment give us? Religion. What does it prevent?
Sponsored religion.
Yes, sir. Somebody raise their hand. Who's gonna tell me? What does it prevent?
Enforces someone to believe the same religion that you want.
That's right. It's called the Establishment Clause. We have the Free Exercise Clause and the Establishment. It's all in this little paragraph. Now, engage in civic activities, register to vote, join advocacy groups. There are people that register to vote. I'm not voting. It's blah, 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 blah. Okay. I want you to think about this. Now, currently you have threats against states, localities that are not cooperating in enforcing some of these executive orders, specifically ICE. Huh? We say ICE?
Montgomery County got that notice from the federal government.
Yeah, so Stephen Miller wrote a letter before the current president was inaugurated, sending these threats out to Montgomery County. He sent a letter out to Calvin Ball in Howard County, sent it to all these folks that have these sanctuary areas. Now, you have to understand something. Your local politics matter. Your local representatives matter. What happens in the state matters, because the federal agency, the federal government cannot force, listen to this, it cannot force a local law enforcement or whatever agent to implement the laws. For example, it can't say, can't go and tell the sheriff of Howard County, ICE is coming, you need to come help us, you need to do everything ICE is telling you to do with this. No, they don't have to do that. Okay? Can't tell the sheriff to do that. Can't do it. No. That's why the states are pushing back with where they can push back. That's why the states have filed, even in the state of Maryland, the Attorney General, Anthony Brown, the state filed a brief in a federal case that was filed in, I believe it was in Massachusetts recently. It was used to block one of these principally the executive order that was talking about the, what is it? The birth part of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Birthright citizenship.
Well, birthright citizenship, okay? There was a judge that struck that down, issued a restraining order immediately, because that's very clear in the Constitution. It's a hot topic, birthright citizenship. Who does it apply to? You know, who does it apply to? We'll talk about that. Who does it apply to? Is it descendants of slaves? That's what it's supposed to be? Oh, it's only applied to the descendants of slaves. That's who the birthright is about. Ain't about nobody else but black folks. They were descendants of slaves.
Nobody's saying that. Saying that's what it was originally meant for.
But what I'm saying
Nobody's
is
saying that what you say.
no. But what I'm saying is that's what I'm saying to you right now. Is that the argument?
No. Nobody's saying that.
So promote interfaith dialogue. Study our deen. Got to know our deen. Brother Azad, prime example. Studying the deen and getting out there. All of us doing the dawah. All about that's important. Dawah, knowing your deen, having the proper adapt out there, doing the best that you can. Support youth programs, mental health, and self-defense. He has a form of self-defense that he utilized. He's got self-defense. Brother, he left. Brother Bear's got Brother Bear has a form of self-defense. So we said the strong Muslim is better than the weak Muslim, right? So all of us, look, what did Umar say when he used to see the guy, he saw the brother in the market, and he looked like he was kind of out of it. He said, "What's down on your stomach, right?" That's like one of these. It's better on somebody. So we have to make sure we try to do our best to be in the best shape physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole nine. Self-defense is important. It's not haram to learn to know how to wrestle. To know that was one of the practices of the Prophet. There's a wrestler. Who did he wrestle to beat? You guys know the story? Who was it?
I think Soraka.
Soraka? So what I'm saying, he was able to beat, he was one of the strongest in terms of wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, one of the soonest that we have in terms of, one of the things we should learn how to do is what? In terms of, archery, right?
No.
Archery,
No.
horseback, and knowing how to,
Swim.
right, all the stuff's important.
No.
Your body has rights over it. Stuff we have to remember too. Some action steps, some things we can do. You want to take it in your notes. Those present should tell those that are not present. Okay? Your wife's not here, let her know what you're learning today. The kids are not here, let them know. Promptly report incidents of discrimination. Let them know, document it. Don't keep it to yourself. You got care, you have issues with care, whatever, but they're there. You know what I mean? Then none of these groups are perfect. We don't find perfection here, but we have a mechanism. Build coalitions with other marginalized groups. We know what that means, okay? There are some issues that with certain groups that have ideas and ways of living that we don't agree with, okay? So the alphabet, you would have an issue with the alphabet issues, but there are other folks out there that you can align with to a degree. Stay informed, do what you did tonight. What you do tonight, you come to community events. We're strong when we are together. We're stronger when we are informed. So you got anything that happens, this is some places you can go out to. You got Office of Human Rights, Montgomery County. You got CARE. We have ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Now, the thing about ACLU, they take on everything. They might even they'll support us 1 minute, next thing they be with the KKK. It's just civil liberties, it's the Constitution. They support rights that we don't agree with, but it's there. You gotta utilize those resources. DOJ, Department of Justice, still you can report those incidents. Still got a right to do that. Now with the questions and answers, this is all I got. Okay? First, and then I'm gonna get to you, Jay. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Now, you mentioned that we refuse to answer to the police, but we still are we allowed to identify ourselves? Because I think they stop you. You don't want to speak.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here, just remember this. No one said you can't speak, but you also have the right to not speak. You follow? So there are certain things that you should be able to do to identify yourself. I had an excessive force case 16 years ago. Young little girl, African American. She's out there. She's out with her friends at a mall in front of Montgomery County. Cops come up to her, and she's like asking her name, and she's like, I need to call and talk to my mom. She's 34 years old, you know? Something happens, he comes, slams her on the face, right, bam, wrecks her mouth, the whole nine. Their argument was that they're allowed to question minors and ask them their identification. A little bit of what I'm saying to you is this, is that no one's forcing you to speak. They're saying that if you can identify yourself, and that's fine, but you don't have to identify yourself. You know what I mean? There's no compelling to do that. It may be more expedient to do it to just keep going about your way. But remember that you don't have to answer all these questions.
So I want to bring out something right here that might be helpful, might not. Does a person who was once that came to the country legitimately, if their papers expired, do they have any rights, more rights than the person who never came legitimately? This says, yes, a person who's immigration papers have expired still has legal rights that an illegal alien does not, primarily because they were previously legally present in the United States and may have a pathway to legalize their status, while an illegal alien has never been legally admitted to the country, but both groups still have basic constitutional protections like due process and equal protection under the law regardless of immigration status. So from this I gather that the person who was once legal has a pathway, meaning that they won't be ICE just won't be able to just zip them on a plane and shoot them out, because they have a pathway to legalize their paperwork.
You know, I'm going to give a disclaimer, and my disclaimer is that immigration is not my full part of my practice. But I will tell you this, is that when you're out of status, there's ways to try and adjustment of status, okay? There are some things that may be possible for you. But what I'm saying is that what's happening right now, if you're no longer in proper status, they're still gonna use that against you. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're still gonna be, if you're not.
So, brother, the person who comes illegally also has pathways to become legal also. Getting married, or if the person delivers, the U.S. citizen has a way, the child has a way of legalizing the parent, so it's the same thing.
Getting married doesn't necessarily give you citizenship, because if you
Yeah.
marry a non-citizen.
No, I'm talking about marrying a U.S. citizen. The point I'm trying to make is there is a path to legalize, even for that person who came illegally initially.
And one more thing I want to say. If this is what we African Americans have learned from experience, if you don't video whatever happens between you and a law enforcement officer, all right, whatever he writes down is what's gonna fly. He can kick your ass. Excuse my language.
Hey, man, you feeling it?
He can kick your behind and say you attacked him. If it's not videoed and there's no witness that's gonna stand up for you, then that's what you're gonna be charged with, and that's what you'll go to prison for.
One of the things too, and I'm gonna get to your question too, in terms of recording now, there's been, of course, many of the states have required officers to have BWCs, body-worn cameras. Body-worn cameras are good, but body-worn cameras do have a period where it's not on. There's no audio.
That's true.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes the cops don't turn the jokers on till later, okay? So even the cops that have it automatically on, you may have a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you don't know what's saying. It's silent. And then it pops on, boom, you hear what's going on.
Like the thing in the prison the other day,
Yeah,
where they killed
and
the
then
brother.
turn the joke off, right?
They were off,
They're off.
yeah, but two of them came on, but no voice.
No voice, exactly.
Yeah.
There's like a delay that they'll have. Yes, brother.
Yeah, if someone comes to the country legally and is a student studying here in Virginia, can this ICE people pick them up?
Not if that, no, because you're straight up, if you're here and your status is legal and you're following the law, there's no reason for you to be detained.
The neighbors, they were two family members staying in the other house, the neighbors in the other house picked up in the 2 o'clock in the night. There were about 20 police fellows in a black van, and they came and just knocked the door, and, they said, okay, you don't have papers, you will have to go to the court. Now, she is worried, and she's scared.
Now, here's what I'm gonna tell you. Some of the, I guess, best practices right now. People trying to say, what do you do? There are advisements to have copies of passports with you, green cards, all that stuff, photocopies of that stuff. Now, like I say, they may do that, just like they may try to arrest me for whatever, and they find it's false arrest. The charge is not gonna stick.
They, I believe, showed the passport copies on the phone.
Yeah.
They showed, certificate of student registered and all that. But they said, no, this is all fake.
Yeah, thanks, exactly. So
It's fake.
so
And they just pulled them off?
yeah, well, no, here's what I'm saying to you. An officer or an investigator, they may try to do what they want to do, doesn't mean what they've done is gonna be upheld in court. You follow what I'm saying? So you can have rogue officers, you can have rogue investigators, all those things can happen.
Yeah,
And I'm
so-
just,
Yeah, I do want to make a disclaimer from the administrative perspective, is that a majority of the brothers and sisters that are here are usually regular at the masjid.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the masjid, we don't give any permission to any agents or agencies to come to the masjid, even with a warrant, because, this is a private property. And on behalf of the private property, we, the person has to when they execute the warrant, it has to be someone from sort of the administration to be here for them to execute it. So I would ask you, inshallah, if you're here and this happens, we don't give permissions, that you're not allowed to give permission to them to come in. They can contact, you can contact myself or Imam or one of us to be able to, make sure, because again, like the brother saying, they themselves can sign a fake warrant and sort of saying, we do have a warrant here, we're gonna come in and execute the warrant, but.
so that's a good point, bro, because
Yeah.
the points then.
We don't consent to any.
The searches. So yeah, because there are times like after, when we have a Fajr, 7 o'clock, folks roll out, and some brothers, we stick around to recite and read and stuff like that, so you need to understand. Brother in the back, and I'll get to you too.
There are three questions. I
Yes,
don't know if I have to go straight to the three questions or one by one. Number one question, I had 3 kids so far, and it was from 11, 10, and 7 years old, and we have 4 on the way. And these executive orders right now, that will affect the newborn to have be a citizen, or you have to go on the process on that.
Let me tell you what, hold on. This whole natural born citizen tirade, this little thing that's going on right now, the Constitution protects natural born citizens. What I'm gonna tell you is this, is that this has already been litigated. This definition of natural born citizen under, they try to use, they're using the clause within the, I think it's, under the jurisdiction of the law, subject to the laws of, that's it, subject to the laws of. Now, that has been used on the site where they're trying to defend this executive order. Okay, saying, oh, that's the nuance, subject to the laws of. If you're illegal, or if you're ABC or illegal, you're not subject, all that, it's already been decided. There was a case 50-something years ago with a Chinese person, immigrant. This has already been decided. It's already been done. It's a done, the Supreme Court has already decided. That's why the district court judge was easily just, he filed the executive order, he signed. It's already been decided.
So the Supreme Court can reverse itself, and that's
So,
what
so,
they're.
yeah, so that's the counting.
Yeah.
That's what the counting, so what it is that you got a flurry of these EOs going up, knowing that maybe the ones at top are going to be able to be swayed and change that interpretation.
Because there is an issue, because the Chinese used to plan their vacations around the 8th month of their pregnancy,
Yeah.
fly into the United States, drop a baby in and go back and say, hey, I got citizenship. And that's not right or fair.
Yeah, I mean-
if I come to your house,
Yeah.
on vacation, and I drop something at your house, and I say, well, wait a minute, now I have a right to be in your house.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm a guest,
Right.
And
Hey, listen, the thing about it, here's the interesting part of this, you know what, is that they gotta go by this little booklet here. And so what's happening is everyone's trying to interpret what this booklet means.
that's what the Supreme Court is.
And that's what the Supreme Court is charged to do. There are certain things that are very clear. Their precedent is hard for them to overrule the precedent. You have precedent, overruling precedent is difficult.
But
Okay,
it can be done.
But it can be done, because they just kind of
Roe
did.
versus Wade.
Overweight, yeah.
So there's 2 questions. Does
All right.
somebody have a question?
Any sisters have a question?
Jose has a question.
Who's like, who has, or that, check he did,
No, so this brother here.
who's first?
This brother right here.
You have one question, I can't answer that question.
Oh,
I'm gonna get back to you. You have another one?
yeah, 3 questions. So,
I mean, you got 3?
Yeah, the first one was gone, so the second, we was talking about, the warrant, arrest warrant for this ISIS. How we able to identify the right or the fake word from these people when,
You can't.
Okay, now, if I can, before I leave, if I may be able to pull up one and show the fake one and the real one. Just, yeah, but you've seen, there's some fake ones and there's some real ones. And the fake ones, you're not gonna have the caption. They can't, if they try to forge a judge's signature, that's real bad, but it's not gonna have the signature of the judge. It won't have the court, it won't have the caption, it won't have the reference number or the case number, the charging document number on that.
So where is the line between cooperating with law enforcement versus using the right of staying quiet?
Okay, good question. But I'm gonna answer that question, but he had his question first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sheikh.
Now, what I was gonna ask is are there any indications to tell that, like, so, if a police officer's body cam is not like turned on, is there any indications?
Yeah, you can see.
There's a
it's
light,
closed.
there's a light coming on.
Yeah, it's closed. You can see the camera.
Oh, the camera is.
Yeah, the
I
camera.
believe,
itself
I
is like
believe
that.
the red button will be blinking.
Yeah, there's a light blinking and on and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
If
if
you
it's on,
don't,
is that like-
if you don't see it, that means something is going on, bro.
This is, sorry.
Oh,
Hold on.
Oh, he's
Jose,
just-
Jose.
Yeah,
Jose,
sir.
I'm sorry, Jose, I'm sorry,
Sir?
State. He had his hand up, I'm sorry, bro. I know, I'm not the one monitoring it, go ahead.
No, someone already,
You want to answer the question?
yeah.
No, it's time to.
Please,
Muhammad Salih.
it's you.
What's the question? Because it benefit us.
If law officer comes here,
Yes, sir.
I do not have a posted sign, this is a private property. How I can be stopped? In order to tell him that this is a private property, I have to have the sign.
No, that's, this is clearly private property, but you're saying, should we have a sign to identify the private property? This is private property.
Public property has a definition.
Yeah, there are definitions of public and private properties. This is clearly private property, it's not governmental, state buildings, not county buildings. It's none of those things.
It's private property or open to the public.
Yeah, but there's still private ownership of it, in and of itself. The thing about it too is that you're talking about searching this. So the issue becomes, yeah, I mean, an officer like people can technically come in, pray, whatever, but conducting a search is a different issue. Going around and going to the imam's office and looking at the files is something different. Coming and taking the books off the shelf for purposes of an investigation is a different issue. Check.
There is a law which the Congress just signed, but when I read it, I didn't understand it. But it's like if somebody entered the country illegally, it's like considered as a crime.
Yes, yeah, right. So here's
Is that the question follows?
yeah. Go ahead.
Does it affect those who entered before, or it starts with the day they signed?
So, I don't know if that was a law signed by Congress or if that was an executive order. Because that takes a little bit to get, I believe it may be an executive order.
I think it was both the Democrat and Republican. Whatever.
Yeah, I can't answer that question, but I would be surprised if it was a bipartisan law that was passed. Because in essence, what you're trying to do is make all those folks that are here